What do you do when everything you've worked for, everything you thought was perfect, comes crashing down in an instant? For Harper, it all changed with a single slap in the middle of a restaurant, a slap that shattered not just her marriage, but her sense of self. But what came after that moment would become the greatest triumph of her life. Stay tuned to hear how Harper turned the worst moment of her life into a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and a future she never imagined. Don't forget to subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and triumph. I never imagined I'd be telling this story, but here I am. That night changed everything. My perfect marriage, my dreams, my entire world came crashing down with a single slap. But looking back now, being thrown to the floor in that restaurant was the wake-up call I needed. I'm Harper, a tech product manager from Seattle, and this is how I turned the worst moment of my life into my greatest triumph. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. You know the couples you see on Instagram, picture-perfect marriages? That was us. 3 years of what appeared to be pure bliss. Weekend brunches, matching Christmas sweaters, and vacation photos that made everyone else envious. David was the charming software engineer who swept me off my feet, and I was the ambitious product manager climbing the corporate ladder. We were the couple everyone aspired to be. I can still picture myself that evening, adjusting my new blue dress in the mirror, the one I'd bought specifically for our anniversary dinner. The promotion letter was tucked in my purse, and I couldn't stop smiling. Senior product manager at 28. I'd worked so hard for this moment late nights, leading cross-disciplinary teams and proving myself in a male-dominated industry. David had always been my biggest supporter, or so I thought. Our families were close, maybe too close. David's parents lived just 15 minutes away, and his mother, Eleanor, was always around, saying she was just checking on my babies, showing up uninvited with homemade casseroles and unsolicited advice. She constantly dropped hints about grandchildren, sending me articles about freezing eggs or the dangers of waiting too long. I'd laugh it off, but underneath, the pressure was slowly building. Everything seemed perfect that evening. The restaurant was gorgeous, with soft jazz playing, candlelight flickering, and the Seattle skyline sparkling through floor-to-ceiling windows. David looked handsome in his navy suit, and Eleanor wore her signature pearl necklace, the one she donned for every important occasion. The waiter had just poured our wine, and everyone was smiling. It felt like the perfect moment to share my news. "I have something exciting to tell you both," I said, my heart racing with anticipation. I pulled out the promotion letter, my hands trembling just slightly. "I've been promoted to senior product manager." The words hung in the air like smoke. That's when I noticed it, the flash of anger in Eleanor's eyes, the tightness in David's smile. "Another promotion?" Trish's voice was sharp, cutting through the noise of the restaurant. "I thought you were finally going to tell us you're expecting." She put her wine glass down with too much force. "David needs a wife, not a competitor." I looked at David, waiting for him to defend me, to celebrate my achievement like he always had before. But he just sat there, jaw clenched, staring at his plate. The silence between us felt like a cavern, filled with years of unspoken expectations and growing resentment. "I thought you'd be happy for me," I said softly, my voice barely audible. "This doesn't change our plans for a family. It means you're choosing your career over my son, over our family," Eleanor interrupted, her voice laced with disdain. "Over the grandchildren you're denying us. Is that what marriage means to you, Harper?" My chest tightened as I watched David's expression darken. The man I loved, my partner of 5 years, was transforming before my eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold, distant, like a stranger. "Mom's right, Jess. We've talked about starting a family. This promotion, it's just another excuse to delay, another way to put your ambitions before us." He reached for his wine glass, his knuckles white with tension. "Before us!" I felt heat rising in my cheeks. "I thought we were a team. I thought you supported my dreams too." My voice cracked slightly, but I held my ground. "This promotion means we'll be more financially secure when we do start a family. I don't understand why." What happened next plays in slow motion in my memories. David's chair scraped against the floor as he stood up, the flash of his hand, the sharp crack of the slap, the shocked gasps from nearby diners. My body hit the floor, my cheek burning, my perfect world shattering like fine china. But what happened after that? That's the story that needs to be told. Because sometimes hitting rock bottom is exactly what you need to finally spread your wings and soar. I lay there on the restaurant floor, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. The cold marble against my cheek, the ringing in my ears, the deafening silence that had fallen over the restaurant. It all felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But this was real, too real. Through my tears, I could see other diners frozen mid-bite, their faces a mix of horror and pity. A young waitress rushed forward with a glass of water, her hands shaking almost as much as mine. And Eleanor? She just sat there, adjusting her pearl necklace as if her son hadn't just assaulted me in public. "Ma'am, should we call the police?" The restaurant manager's voice seemed to come from far away. I pushed myself up from the floor, my designer dress, the one I'd chosen so carefully for this special night, now crumpled and stained. My face burned not just from the slap, but from the humiliation. "Harper, you're being dramatic. Sit down and let's discuss this like adults," Eleanor hissed, reaching for my arm. I jerked away from her touch as if it would burn me. David stood there, his face a storm of emotions. Anger, shock, and something else. Was it guilt? I didn't stay to find out. "Don't follow me," I managed to say, my voice stronger than I felt. Grabbing my purse, I walked out of that restaurant with whatever dignity I had left. The valet took one look at my tear-stained face and rushed to get my car without the ticket. The drive home was a blur. Seattle's rainy streets reflected the neon signs like watercolors, matching the chaos in my mind. I called my best friend, Chloe, on the car's Bluetooth. "Ra, can you come over? I need you." My voice cracked, but I managed to explain what happened. "Don't move. I'm on my way with ice cream and wine," she said, no questions asked. This is what real support sounds like, I thought bitterly. Back at the apartment, or should I say, his apartment now, I began throwing things into a suitcase. Designer clothes we had bought together, photos from better times, the laptop with all my work files. My hands moved mechanically while my mind raced. 3 years of marriage, 5 years together, all shattered by a slap that seemed to reverberate through every fiber of my being. Chloe arrived just as I was finishing packing. One look at my face, now bearing an angry red mark from David's hand, and she pulled me into a tight hug. "You're staying with me," she said firmly, no hesitation in her voice. "I should have said something months ago when he started controlling your work hours." As we drove to her place, my phone buzzed constantly. Messages from David flooded in. "Baby, I'm so sorry. Please come home. We can work things out. You know how my mom gets. I was just stressed. Don't throw away our marriage." Each message made me feel sick. This wasn't love. It was manipulation. For a moment, I second-guessed myself. Maybe I'd misread the situation. But that night, curled up on Chloe's couch with a bag of frozen peas on my cheek, something shifted. I wasn't going to become another statistic, another woman who stayed silent. I was a senior product manager, a leader who ran million-dollar projects. I could handle this too. The next morning, I walked into the office, head held high, my bruise concealed beneath makeup. I went straight to HR. "I need to document something," I said, my voice steady. "And I need to make sure my husband can't access this building." Evelyn, the HR director, listened without judgment, took photos of my face, and immediately set up new security protocols. "We've got your back, Harper," she said, sliding a list of resources across the desk: lawyers, counselors, support groups. "And congratulations on your promotion. You earned it." I hadn't cried since leaving the restaurant, but her simple acknowledgement of my achievement, the one I had worked so hard for, broke something inside me. These weren't tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of strength, tears of resolve. That evening, I opened my laptop and started a new document, my freedom plan. First, separate bank account. Second, restraining order. Third, find an apartment. Fourth, therapy. The list grew as my confidence returned. David's messages had shifted from apologies to threats. "You're ruining our family. Think about what people will say. Your career won't keep you warm at night. Each message only strengthened my determination. I stood in Chloe's bathroom, gently touching the bruise now turning purple. You are not a victim, I whispered to my reflection. You are a survivor, and this is just the beginning. Little did I know I was right. Sometimes life has a way of turning your worst moments into opportunities. And mine, it was just around the corner, waiting to turn my pain into purpose. They say success is the best revenge, but I wasn't after revenge. I wanted something far more powerful. I wanted to thrive. The next few weeks were a blur of action and change, each step moving me further from that devastating night and closer to the woman I was always meant to be. My first power move? Walking into a major product launch meeting, holding my head high. 50 pairs of eyes were on me as I presented our new strategy. Not one of them saw a victim. They saw a leader. My voice didn't shake once as I outlined our roadmap. The bruise had faded, but my determination only grew stronger. Outstanding presentation, Harper, my CEO said afterward, pulling me aside. I heard about your situation. Just know that we're doubling down on our faith in you. We'd like you to lead our Women in Tech initiative. I almost dropped my laptop. This was exactly the kind of opportunity I'd always dreamed of but had been too afraid to pursue. Funny how losing everything makes you fearless. My temporary stay at Chloe's turned into apartment hunting. I found a small but bright studio overlooking the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The first night there, I sat on my new IKEA couch, which I assembled myself, thank you very much, eating takeout Chinese food when my phone buzzed. It was a message from a junior product manager. Your presentation today changed my life. I'm also in an abusive relationship and seeing you stand there so strong. Can we talk? That message hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't just changing my life, I could help change others. The next day, I started a private Slack channel called Tech Women Rising. Within a week, we had 30 members. Within a month, over 100. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings began. David's attempts to manipulate me through mutual friends and family backfired as I stood my ground. You don't understand, he told our mediator. She's throwing away everything for her career. I smiled politely and let my lawyer do the talking. But the real transformation wasn't happening in conference rooms or courtrooms. It was happening within me. Every Monday and Wednesday, I took self-defense classes. Every Thursday, I met with my therapist, Dr. Chen. You're not just surviving, she told me. You're revolutionizing your life. The Women in Tech initiative took off like a rocket. We organized monthly workshops, bringing in speakers who shared stories of resilience and success. I found myself sharing my story too, first with small groups, then at larger events. Success isn't about having a perfect life, I told a crowd at our first major conference. It's about having the courage to rebuild when life falls apart. The standing ovation wasn't for my words. It was for every woman who'd ever had to choose between her dreams and someone else's expectations. My apartment slowly became a home. I painted one wall deep blue, something David would have hated. I bought plants and learned to keep them alive. Started cooking for myself instead of waiting for Eleanor's passive-aggressive casseroles. Small victories, but they felt massive. 6 months after that fateful dinner, I was asked to give a keynote speech at the Seattle Tech Summit. As I walked onto that stage wearing a new blue dress, yes, blue, I was reclaiming everything. I saw Eleanor in the audience. She'd probably expected to see me broken. Instead, she saw me soaring. 3 months ago, I was knocked down, I began, looking directly at her. But being on the ground showed me something important. The only way forward was up. And up is exactly where I decided to go. The response was overwhelming. Women lined up afterward to share their stories, thank me, to join our growing community. That's when I realized this wasn't just about my healing anymore. It had become a movement. But the biggest surprise was still to come. As I was leaving the summit, a woman approached me, tall, confident, with kind eyes. I'm Linda Chen from Microsoft's Global Innovation Team, she said. We need someone like you, someone who not only builds products but builds people up. Would you be interested in joining us? Standing there, resume requests in one hand and speaking invitations in the other, I thought about that night on the restaurant floor, how I'd felt so small, so powerless. If only I could go back and tell that version of me, "Hold on, girl. Your life is about to become bigger than you ever imagined, because sometimes rock bottom isn't an ending, it's a launch pad." 1 year later, I'm standing in my corner office at Microsoft, looking out at the Seattle skyline, the same skyline I saw through my tears that night. But now it represents something different: possibility, strength, and most importantly, freedom. The ring David on my finger has long faded, replaced by a beautiful bracelet I bought myself to celebrate my first major product launch at Microsoft. It's inscribed with the words, "Rock bottom was the foundation." Every time I look at it, I'm reminded of how far I've come. Yesterday, I ran into David at a local coffee shop. A year ago, just the thought of seeing him would have sent me spiraling into panic. But this time I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just calm indifference. He seemed small, almost insignificant. Nothing like the man who had once loomed over me in that restaurant. I ordered my latte, offered a polite smile, and walked out. That, I realized, is what true healing looks like. Since then, I've channeled my energy into something meaningful. Our Tech Women Rising community has blossomed to over 5,000 members nationwide. We've helped countless women escape abusive relationships, find new careers, and rebuild their lives. Every Tuesday evening, I mentor 3 women who are at the beginning of their own journeys. When they ask me how I did it, I tell them the truth. One brave decision at a time. The work I do with Microsoft's global innovation team is no longer just a job. It's my platform for change. Together, we've implemented new workplace safety protocols, established support networks for employees in crisis, and launched a scholarship program for survivors of domestic violence looking to pursue careers in tech. Last month, I gave a TED Talk titled, "From Floor to Flight: How Rock Bottom Built My Wings." As I stepped onto that iconic red circle wearing a power suit that made me feel unstoppable, I saw Eleanor in the audience. But this time, I wasn't anxious. I wasn't angry. I was filled with gratitude. "Thank you," I said into the microphone, looking directly at her. "To everyone who tried to clip my wings. You taught me how to build stronger ones." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, but the real victory wasn't the applause. It was the flood of messages that came afterward. "You gave me the courage to leave. I start my new job tomorrow. I finally filed for divorce. I chose me." Now in my new apartment, there's a wall full of photos, not of a perfect marriage, but of real moments of joy. There's one from the summit of Mount Rainier. Yes, I'm a hiker now. Another from a conference where I spoke on a stage. There's a picture of me laughing with my support group, and one with Chloe, who stood by me through it all. These pictures don't capture what I lost, but what I found: myself. Last week, a young product manager asked if I regretted that night at the restaurant. I paused before answering. "I regret that anyone has to experience violence," I said, "but I don't regret what came after. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives become our greatest teachers." So here I am, sharing my story not because I want sympathy, but because I want you to understand something crucial. That moment when you're on the floor, whether literally or figuratively, is not the end of your story. It might just be the beginning. If you're watching this from your own rock bottom feeling scared, hurt, or trapped, I want you to know something. You are stronger than you think. Your dreams matter. Your safety matters. You matter. Remember, success isn't about never falling. It's about how you rise, what you build, and who you lift along the way. My name is Harper, and this is not a story about being knocked down. It's a story about soaring. And in case you're wondering what happened to the blue dress from that anniversary night, I donated it, along with a business suit, to a women's shelter. Because sometimes another woman needs to be reminded that she too can rise from the floor and touch the sky. Sometimes everything is made of darkness, but everything can be dark. This is not the end of my story. It's just the beginning. Because every time another woman stands up, speaks out, and reclaims her power, our collective story grows stronger. What happens when the life you've built shatters in an instant and you're left with nothing but the strength to rise again? Harper's world crumbled when her husband, David, slapped her in a crowded restaurant, marking the end of what she thought was a perfect marriage. A promotion she had worked so hard for became the tipping point in a life she no longer recognized. Her dream of a family, her career aspirations, and her personal values all collided, leading her to a moment where she had no choice but to walk away from everything that was suffocating her. This slap wasn't just an act of violence. It was the catalyst that launched Harper into a new reality, one where she no longer sought approval or lived for anyone else but herself. What followed was nothing short of a transformation. With Chloe's unwavering support, Harper found the courage to file for a restraining order, start a new life, and reclaim her power. She was no longer the woman who had been pushed into silence. She became the leader she was always meant to be, standing tall in her career and in her personal life. Harper's journey from rock bottom to personal and professional triumph wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving. Looking back, Harper sees that the slap in the restaurant was not her defeat, it was her wake-up call. The real victory was in how she rebuilt her life, helping other women along the way. Now, she's not just thriving in her career as a senior product manager, but she's leading a community of women empowering each other. Harper's journey proves that sometimes the worst moments are the ones that help you soar. What would you do if you found yourself in Harper's shoes? How would you rebuild when everything seems lost? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories.
My name is Eve, and I never thought I'd be plotting revenge against my own husband. But here I am, trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who sees me as nothing more than a convenient punching bag for his frustrations. You're nothing but a barren, useless excuse of a wife. I'm doing you a favor by letting you gain some parenting experience. Be grateful, Eve. Caleb spat, his voice dripping with contempt. I flinched as he slammed the front door, leaving me alone to face the chaos of Emma's kids wreaking havoc in our once peaceful home. The sound of shattering glass echoed from the living room, followed by high-pitched squeals and laughter. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and wondered how I'd ended up here. Just 5 years ago, Caleb had swept me off my feet with grand gestures and promises of eternal love. Now, at 34, I found myself questioning every decision that led to this moment. Aunt Eve, Ben's trying to flush my dolly down the toilet. Lucy's shrill voice pierced through my thoughts. I rushed upstairs, my heart pounding. Ben, stop that right now, I shouted, yanking the bathroom door open. The 7-year-old boy looked up at me, his eyes wide with feigned innocence. I was just giving her dolly a bath, he said, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. I snatched the doll from his hands and handed it back to a sniffling Lucy. Go play in the backyard, both of you. And no more flushing things down the toilet. As I herded the children outside, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Caleb. Emma needs us to watch the kids overnight. Don't screw this up. My stomach churned. One day had already pushed me to my limits, and now I was expected to handle 3 unruly children for an entire night? I typed back a quick response. Caleb, I can't do this alone. Can't we ask your parents for help? His reply was almost instantaneous. Don't be pathetic, Eve. If you can't handle kids for one night, how do you expect to ever be a mother? The words stung, reopening the wound of our infertility struggles. I blinked back tears, refusing to let them fall. This wasn't the life I had envisioned for myself. A crash from the backyard jolted me back to reality. I raced outside to find Riley, the youngest at 5 years old, covered in mud and giggling uncontrollably. Look, Aunt Eve. I'm a mud monster, he exclaimed, running towards me with outstretched arms. I dodged his muddy embrace, my patience wearing thin. Riley, that's enough. All of you, inside now. It's time to clean up and have dinner. As I corralled the children back into the house, my mind wandered to the day we'd bumped into Emma at the grocery store. Caleb's eyes had lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years, and my heart had sunk. I should have known then that trouble was brewing. Can we have pizza for dinner? Ben asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. I sighed, too exhausted to argue. Fine, pizza it is. While the kids squabbled over toppings, I placed the order and retreated to the kitchen. Leaning against the counter, I pulled out my phone and stared at my contact list. My finger hovered over my sister Hannah's name. We hadn't spoken in years, not since our falling out over Caleb. She had warned me about him, said he would break my heart. I had been too blinded by love to listen. Now, as I stood in my chaotic kitchen, surrounded by the mess of a life I never wanted, I realized how right she had been. But could I swallow my pride and reach out to her now? As another crash echoed through the house, followed by more screaming, I knew I had no choice. I needed help, and Hannah was my only hope. With trembling fingers, I pressed the call button, praying she would answer. As the phone rang, I steeled myself for what was to come. One way or another, things were about to change. I never expected a simple trip to the grocery store would be the catalyst for my world unraveling. But there she was, standing in the produce aisle, her perfectly manicured hand hovering over a pile of avocados. Emma? Caleb's voice rang out, a note of excitement I hadn't heard in years coloring his tone. The woman turned, her face lighting up with recognition. Caleb. Oh my God, it's been forever. I stood frozen, watching as my husband embraced his ex-girlfriend with far too much enthusiasm. When they finally broke apart, Emma's gaze fell on me, her smile never wavering. And you must be Eve, she said, extending her hand. I've heard so much about you. I forced a smile, shaking her hand. Funny, I can't say the same. Caleb shot me a warning glance before turning back to Emma. How have you been? Last I heard, you were moving to California. Emma laughed, a tinkling sound that set my teeth on edge. Oh, that didn't work out. I'm back in town now, with my 3 little ones in tow. You have kids? Caleb asked, his eyes widening with interest. 3 of them, Emma replied, her smile turning wistful. It's been challenging being a single mom. I watched as Caleb's expression softened, and a knot formed in my stomach. I knew that look. It was the same one he used to give me when we first started dating. We should catch up properly, Caleb said, his voice eager. Why don't you come over for dinner sometime? I opened my mouth to protest, but Emma beat me to it. That sounds lovely. How about this Friday? Before I could interject, Caleb was nodding enthusiastically. Perfect. We'll see you then. As Emma walked away with a wave, I turned to Caleb, my voice low and angry. What the hell was that? He shrugged, already pushing the cart towards the checkout.
What?
It's just dinner with an old friend. An old girlfriend, I corrected. And you didn't even ask me if I was okay with it. Caleb's jaw tightened. I didn't realize I needed your permission to invite friends over, Eve. The ride home was tense, filled with loaded silence. As we unpacked the groceries, I tried one last time to reason with him. Caleb, I'm not comfortable with this. Can't we just cancel? He slammed a can of tomatoes onto the counter, making me jump. For God's sake, Eve, stop being so insecure. It's pathetic. I flinched at his words, feeling the familiar sting of tears. But I blinked them back, refusing to let him see how much he'd hurt me. Friday arrived all too quickly. I spent the day cleaning the house, my stomach in knots. When the doorbell rang at 7 p.m. sharp, I plastered on my best fake smile and opened the door. Emma stood there, looking effortlessly glamorous in a flowing sundress. Behind her were 3 children, all bearing a striking resemblance to their mother.
Eve, darling.
Emma exclaimed, air-kissing my cheeks. Thank you so much for having us. These are my little angels, Lucy, Ben, and Riley. The kids mumbled hellos, eyeing me warily. As they filed past me into the house, I caught a whiff of Emma's expensive perfume and felt suddenly self-conscious in my simple jeans and blouse. Caleb appeared then, his face lighting up at the sight of Emma. You made it.
Come in, come in.
Kids, make yourselves at home. And just like that, my carefully ordered world descended into chaos. The children scattered, their excited shrieks echoing through the house. Emma glided into the living room, Caleb hovering attentively at her side. I retreated to the kitchen, busying myself with dinner preparations. Through the doorway, I could hear Emma's melodious laughter mingling with Caleb's deep chuckles. The sound made my chest ache. As I stirred the pasta sauce, I caught snippets of their conversation. Always knew you'd be successful, Caleb. You were always so ambitious. Can't believe how amazing you look, Em. The years have been kind. I gripped the wooden spoon tighter, willing myself to stay calm. But as I glanced into the living room and saw Caleb's hand resting casually on Emma's knee, I knew with sickening certainty that this was only the beginning of my nightmare. The weeks following that fateful dinner became a blur of chaos and mounting frustration. Emma's visits, once an anomaly, transformed into an almost daily occurrence. My home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a war zone. Caleb, we need to talk about this, I said one evening after Emma and her brood had finally left. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it, toys strewn everywhere and mysterious stains on the carpet. He barely glanced up from his phone.
About what?
About Emma and her kids practically living here. It's disrupting everything. Caleb's eyes narrowed. They're going through a tough time, Eve. I thought you'd be more understanding. Understanding. I sputtered. I'm the one cleaning up their messes, cooking for them, trying to work from home with all this noise dash. Maybe if you had kids of your own, you'd be more patient, he snapped, his words cutting deep. I recoiled as if slapped. That's not fair, and you know it. But Caleb had already turned away, ending the conversation. I was left standing alone, surrounded by the debris of a life I no longer recognized. The next day, I was on a conference call when the doorbell rang. I ignored it, knowing Caleb would answer. Minutes later, shrieks of laughter pierced through my concentration. Sorry, can you repeat that? I asked my client, trying to mask my irritation. I'm having some background noise issues. As soon as the call ended, I stormed downstairs. Emma's kids were running wild, with Emma herself lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Oh, Eve, she chirped, looking up. I hope we're not bothering you. The kids were just so eager to come over. I forced a smile. Actually, Emma, I'm working. It's a bit disruptive dash. Eve. Caleb's sharp voice cut me off. He'd appeared in the doorway, frowning. A word. In the kitchen, he laid into me. What's wrong with you? They're just kids having fun. I'm trying to work, Caleb. This is my home office too.
He scoffed.
Maybe if you made more of an effort to connect with them, you'd enjoy their company. I stared at him, disbelieving. When did I become the villain in my own home? But Caleb had already turned away, heading back to Emma and the kids. I watched as he sat next to her on the couch, their heads bent close in conversation, while the children continued their rampage. Days blurred into weeks. My work suffered as I struggled to maintain any semblance of order. Caleb grew more distant, spending every free moment with Emma and her kids. I became a ghost in my own home, retreating to our bedroom to escape the constant chaos. One evening, I overheard Caleb and Emma talking in hushed tones in the kitchen. I don't know how much longer I can do this, Caleb was saying. Eve's becoming impossible to live with. Emma's voice was soothing. Oh, honey, you deserve so much better. Someone who understands you, supports you. I backed away, my heart pounding. The pieces were falling into place, the lingering touches, the private jokes, the way Caleb's eyes lit up whenever Emma entered the room. That night, as Caleb slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The life I'd built was crumbling around me, and I felt powerless to stop it. I thought of my sister Hannah, of the rift between us that had seemed so insurmountable. Now, faced with the wreckage of my marriage, that old hurt seemed trivial. With trembling fingers, I reached for my phone. It was time to swallow my pride. As I typed out a message to Hannah, tears slid silently down my cheeks. I was done being a doormat. It was time to fight back. I woke to the sound of hushed voices and shuffling feet. Blinking away sleep, I found Caleb hastily packing a suitcase. What's going on? I asked, my voice thick with confusion. Caleb barely glanced at me. Emma's going on a trip. I'm going with her to help with the kids. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. What? For how long? 3 days, he replied, zipping up the bag. Emma's dropping the kids off here in an hour. You'll need to watch them while we're gone. The room spun. Caleb, you can't be serious. I have work, and I can't handle 3 kids alone for 3 days. He fixed me with a cold stare. This isn't up for discussion, Eve. Emma needs help, and I'm going to be there for her. It's about time you stepped up and did something useful around here. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Caleb rushed downstairs, leaving me shell-shocked in our bedroom. I stumbled down after him, just in time to see Emma ushering her children inside. She beamed at me, all saccharine sweetness.
Eve, darling.
Thank you so much for doing this. You're a lifesaver. I opened my mouth to protest, but Caleb cut me off. Of course she's happy to help. Right, Eve? Trapped under their expectant gazes, I could only nod mutely. Emma clapped her hands together. Wonderful. Kids, be good for Aunt Eve. Mommy and Uncle Caleb will be back in a few days. As Emma rattled off a list of instructions, dietary restrictions, bedtime routines, favorite toys, I felt my world tilting on its axis. This couldn't be happening. Before I knew it, Caleb and Emma were out the door, leaving me alone with 3 wide-eyed children and a sinking feeling in my stomach. The first day was a nightmare. Lucy refused to eat anything but ice cream. Ben dismantled my laptop to see how it works, and Riley had a meltdown because his favorite TV show wasn't on. By nightfall, I was at my wit's end. The house was a disaster zone. I'd missed 2 important work calls, and the kids were still running wild. As I slumped on the couch, my phone buzzed. It was Caleb. How's everything going? He asked, the sound of laughter and music in the background. It's chaos, I admitted. Caleb, I can't do this. Can you please come home? His voice hardened. Don't be dramatic, Eve. They're just kids. Figure it out. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, tears welling up. That's when I noticed a new text message from Hannah. Hey sis, just checking in. How are you holding up? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Pride warred with desperation. Finally, I typed out a response. Hannah, I need help. Can you come over? Her reply was almost instantaneous. On my way. An hour later, Hannah swept through the front door like a force of nature. She took one look at the chaos around us and sprang into action. All right, troops, she called out to the kids. Who wants to play a game? To my amazement, the children gathered around her, hanging on her every word. Within minutes, she had them engaged in a cleanup competition, turning the mess into a game. As we worked side by side, Hannah turned to me. Eve, what's really going on here? The dam broke. Through tears, I told her everything. Caleb's emotional abuse, Emma's manipulation, my growing suspicions of their affair. Hannah listened, her face darkening with each revelation. When I finished, she pulled me into a fierce hug. I'm so sorry, Eve. I should have been here for you. But I'm here now, and we're going to fix this. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. As we tackled the chaos together, a plan began to form in my mind. Caleb and Emma thought they could walk all over me, but they had no idea what was coming. With Hannah by my side, I was ready to fight back. The tables were about to turn, and I couldn't wait to see their faces when they returned to find their little game was over. The next morning, I woke to the smell of pancakes and the sound of laughter. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Then I remembered Hannah was here. I padded downstairs to find my sister at the stove, flipping pancakes with expert ease. Emma's children sat at the table, quietly coloring as they waited for breakfast. Morning, sleepyhead, Hannah grinned. Hope you're hungry. As we ate, Hannah outlined her plan. First, we establish a routine. Kids thrive on structure. Then, we'll tackle this house. By the time Caleb and Emma return, they won't recognize the place or the kids. Over the next 2 days, Hannah worked miracles. She implemented a chore chart, turning cleaning into a game. She set up a reward system for good behavior and consequences for breaking rules. The children, starved for attention and discipline, responded enthusiastically. While Hannah managed the kids, I threw myself into work, catching up on missed deadlines. For the first time in months, I felt productive, energized. On the third day, as Hannah and I sat on the porch watching the kids play in the yard, she turned to me with a serious expression. Eve, we need to talk about what happens when Kayla comes back. I sighed, the bubble of peace bursting. I know. I don't know what to do. Hannah squeezed my hand. You can't keep living like this. It's time to fight back. She was right, of course. But the thought of confronting Caleb terrified me. What if he left me? What if? My thoughts were interrupted by a shout from inside. We rushed in to find Ben standing by Caleb's open laptop, looking confused. Aunt Eve, why does Uncle Caleb have pictures of Mommy in his computer? My blood ran cold. Hannah gently moved Ben aside as I approached the laptop. There, in full view, was a folder labeled M. With shaking hands, I clicked it open. Dozens of intimate photos of Emma filled the screen. Emails detailing secret rendezvous. Bank statements showing large transfers to an unknown account. Oh, Eve, Hannah breathed. I'm so sorry. I felt numb. Part of me had known, of course. But seeing the evidence laid bare, it was devastating. As Hannah ushered the kids out of the room, I sank into Caleb's chair, my mind racing. This was it, the proof I needed. But what would I do with it? Hannah returned, her face set with determination. We need to make copies of everything. Then we call a lawyer. I nodded, still in shock. As Hannah worked on backing up the files, I noticed an email draft Caleb had left open. My eyes widened as I read it. Hannah, I called, my voice shaking. Look at this. The email detailed plans for Caleb and Emma to move to another state, taking the kids with them. They were planning to leave in just 2 weeks. That son of a datch, Hannah cut herself off, glancing at the kids in the next room. Eve, we need to act fast. She was right. The numbness was fading, replaced by a burning anger. Caleb thought he could discard me like yesterday's trash. He had another thing coming. Okay, I said, standing up straighter. What's our next move? Hannah's eyes gleamed with a mix of pride and determination. First, we secure all this evidence. Then, we prepare for their return. They think they're coming back to a meek, overwhelmed Eve. Let's show them how wrong they are. As we worked late into the night, planning our strategy, I felt a strange mix of emotions, fear, anger, but also a growing sense of empowerment. For too long, I'd been a victim in my own life. It was time to take control. When Caleb and Emma returned tomorrow, they'd find a very different Eve waiting for them. And I couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway sent a jolt through my body. Hannah squeezed my hand reassuringly as we heard the front door open. Eve, we're back. Caleb's voice rang out, a note of surprise evident as he took in the spotless living room. I stepped out of the kitchen, Hannah close behind me. Caleb and Emma stood in the entryway, their smiles faltering as they registered our united front. Welcome back, I said, my voice steady. How was your trip? Caleb's eyes darted between Hannah and me. What's going on here? Why is Hannah here? Before I could respond, Emma's children came bounding down the stairs, their faces alight with excitement.
Mom.
Uncle Caleb, look what we made. Lucy held up a colorful chart. It's our chore wheel. Aunt Eve and Aunt Hannah helped us make it. Emma's smile looked strained as she examined the chart. That's nice, sweetie. Why don't you all go play upstairs while the grown-ups talk? But Mom, Ben protested, we have to finish our homework first. That's the rule now. Emma's eyebrows shot up. Rule? What rule? The rules Aunt Eve and Aunt Hannah made. Riley chimed in. They're much better than your rules, Mom. We actually have fun now. I watched as Emma's face tightened, her eyes flashing with anger. Caleb stepped forward, his charm offensive in full swing. Kids, listen to your mother. Go upstairs now. To everyone's surprise, it was Ben who spoke up. No, Uncle Caleb. We don't have to do what you say anymore. Aunt Eve showed us the pictures on your computer. You're not a good person. The color drained from Caleb's face. Emma whirled on him, her voice shrill. What pictures? I stepped forward, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. I think it's time we all had a talk. Kids, please go upstairs. Hannah will be up in a minute to help with homework. As Hannah ushered the children upstairs, I led Caleb and Emma into the living room. The tension was palpable as we sat down. Eve, whatever you think you know, Caleb began, but I cut him off. Save it, Caleb. I've seen everything. The photos, the emails, the bank statements. I know about your plans to leave with Emma and the kids. Emma's head snapped towards Caleb. You told her? He didn't have to, I replied coldly. You two weren't as careful as you thought. Caleb's face twisted with anger. You had no right to go through my personal files, and you had no right to betray our marriage. I shot back, my voice rising. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That I'd just roll over and let you walk all over me? Emma stood up, her eyes wild. This is ridiculous. Come on, Caleb. Let's get the kids and go. You're not taking those children anywhere. Hannah's voice rang out as she re-entered the room. Not until we've sorted this mess out. Caleb jumped to his feet. You can't stop us. They're Emma's kids. Actually, I said, pulling out a folder. I can. I've spoken to a lawyer. Given the evidence of your affair and your plans to flee the state with the children, we have grounds for an emergency custody order. Emma's face crumpled. You can't do this. They're my children. Children you were perfectly happy to dump on me whenever it was convenient, I retorted. Children who have flourished under proper care and attention in just 3 days. Caleb lunged forward, his face contorted with rage. You manipulative bitch. You planned this all along. Hannah stepped between us, her voice steel. Back off, Caleb. Unless you want assault charges added to your growing list of problems. As Caleb and Emma's world unraveled before my eyes, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This wasn't how I'd imagined my marriage ending, but I knew it was necessary. So, what happens now? Emma asked, her voice small. I took a deep breath. Now, we're going to have a long, honest conversation about the future. And this time, I'm the one calling the shots. The tense silence that had settled over the room was shattered by the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Caleb's face paled as he recognized the distinctive rumble of his father's vintage Cadillac. What the hell, he muttered, moving towards the window. Hannah shot me a knowing look. I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime a stark contrast to the atmosphere in the house. I moved to answer it, Caleb hot on my heels. Mom? Dad? What are you doing here? Caleb's voice cracked as he faced his parents on the doorstep. Margot and Richard Lawson stood there, concern etched on their faces. Hannah called us, Margot explained, her eyes darting between Caleb and me. She said there was an emergency. Caleb whirled on Hannah, his face contorted with rage. You had no right, Dash. She had every right, Richard cut in, his voice stern. Now, someone better start explaining what's going on here. As we all filed back into the living room, Emma tried to make a discreet exit. I should probably go check on the kids, Dash. Sit down, Emma, I said firmly. You're as much a part of this as anyone. Over the next hour, the whole sordid tale unfolded. I presented the evidence of Caleb and Emma's affair, the financial records showing Caleb's mismanagement of our joint accounts, and their plans to flee with Emma's children. Margot gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Caleb, how could you? Caleb's face was a mask of defiance.
You don't understand.
Eve and I were having problems. Emma was there for me, Dash. Don't you dare try to justify this, Richard thundered. We raised you better than this. As the reality of the situation sank in, Emma's composure began to crack. This isn't fair, she wailed. We love each other. You can't keep us apart. In a desperate move, she grabbed Caleb's hand and made a dash for the stairs. Let's just get the kids and go. We don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. But Caleb's parents were quicker. Richard blocked the staircase while Margot positioned herself by the front door. You're not going anywhere, Richard said, his voice low and dangerous. Not until we've sorted out this mess you've created. Caleb's shoulders slumped in defeat.
Fine.
What do you want from me? Richard's eyes were cold as he addressed his son. First, you're going to sign over control of all your accounts to your mother and me. We'll make sure Eve gets what she's owed in the divorce. Divorce? Caleb sputtered. Who said anything about divorce? I stepped forward, my voice steady.
I did.
It's over, Caleb. I won't be your doormat anymore. Margot nodded approvingly. Good for you, Eve. And as for you, she turned to Emma, I suggest you start thinking about what's best for your children. Because from what I've seen, it certainly isn't you. Emma crumpled to the floor, sobbing. Caleb stood frozen, the reality of his actions finally sinking in. Richard turned to me, his expression softening. Eve, I want you to know that Margot and I support you completely. We'll make sure you're taken care of during and after the divorce proceedings. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. That means more than you know. As Hannah wrapped an arm around my shoulders, I realized that this was it. The moment everything changed. The life I had known was over, but a new one was just beginning. Caleb made one last, desperate attempt. Mom, Dad, please. You can't just cut me off. I'm your son. Richard's voice was heavy with disappointment. A son we no longer recognize. Until you make this right, until you show true remorse for your actions, consider yourself disowned. The finality of those words hung in the air. As Caleb and Emma's world crumbled around them, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt hope. I caught Hannah's eye and saw my own determination reflected there. Whatever came next, I knew I wouldn't face it alone. 6 months after that fateful confrontation, I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by moving boxes and the promise of a fresh start. The divorce had been finalized last week, thanks in large part to the unwavering support of Caleb's parents and my sister Hannah. I ran my hand along the smooth surface of my desk, a parting gift from Margot and Richard. To new beginnings, the card had read. Their kindness still overwhelmed me at times. A knock at the door pulled me from my reverie. Hannah's smiling face greeted me as I opened it. Ready for your first day at the new job, sis? She asked, stepping inside. I nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness fluttering in my stomach. As ready as I'll ever be. As we drove across the city, Hannah filled me in on the latest developments. Emma's kids are doing great with their new therapist. The court-mandated visitations are going smoothly, and Emma seems to be making an effort to be a better mother. I felt a pang of sympathy for the children I'd grown to care for during those chaotic days. And Caleb, Hannah's expression hardened. Last I heard, he's still trying to win back his parents' approval. The affair with Emma fell apart pretty quickly once the money dried up. I nodded, surprised at how little I felt at the mention of my ex-husband's name. The anger and hurt that had consumed me for so long had faded, replaced by a sense of peace and purpose. As we pulled up to my new workplace, a bustling nonprofit focused on supporting victims of domestic abuse, Hannah squeezed my hand. You've got this, Eve. I'm so proud of you. Tears pricked my eyes. I couldn't have done any of this without you, Hannah. Thank you for being there when I needed you most. She pulled me into a fierce hug. That's what sisters are for. Now go show them what you're made of. As I walked into the building, head held high, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the moments of despair, they had all led to this new chapter in my life. My first day flew by in a whirlwind of introductions, orientations, and the exhilarating feeling of being part of something meaningful. As I packed up to leave, my new boss, Sarah, stopped by my desk. Eve, I just wanted to say how impressed I am with your passion and insight. Your personal experience will be invaluable in helping other women find their strength. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest.
Thank you, Sarah.
This work, it means everything to me. That evening, as I sat on my small balcony watching the sunset, I pulled out my journal. It had been my constant companion throughout the divorce, a place to pour out my fears and hopes. I began to write, Dear future Eve, today marks the beginning of a new journey. I want you to remember how far you've come. The woman who felt trapped and worthless in a loveless marriage is gone. In her place stands someone stronger, wiser, and full of purpose. Never forget the lessons you've learned.
1.
Your worth is not determined by anyone else's opinion of you.
2.
It's okay to ask for help when you need it.
3,
True family stands by you, even when it's difficult.
4,
You are capable of more than you ever imagined. Whatever challenges lie ahead, face them with the same courage and determination that brought you here. Your past does not define you, but it has shaped you into the resilient woman you are today. The future is yours to shape. Make it a beautiful one, with love and pride.
Eve.
As I closed the journal, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The scars of my past would always be a part of me, but they no longer held me captive. Instead, they served as a reminder of my strength and resilience. I looked out at the city skyline, alive with possibilities. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The road ahead might be uncertain, but I was ready to face it head-on, armed with self-love, the support of true family, and the unshakable belief in my own worth. This wasn't just an ending. It was a new beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. My name is Vivian Miller, and I never thought I'd be staring divorce in the face at 32. But here I am, watching my husband of 5 years pack a suitcase like our marriage means nothing more than a failed business venture. "Brad, please," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "We can work this out. We always have." He didn't even look up from his methodical folding. "There's nothing to work out, Vivian. I've made myself clear." I felt my chest tighten, remembering the bomb he dropped on me just an hour ago. The words still rang in my ears, sharp and unforgiving. "Vivian, it's been a year. I'm not getting any younger. We need to start a family now or I'm done." I'd been stunned into silence then, but now anger bubbled up inside me. "You can't just put an expiration date on our marriage, Brad." He finally met my gaze, his blue eyes cold and determined. "Watch me." I stepped closer, desperate to make him understand. "We agreed to wait until we were both ready. My career is just taking off, and you said you supported that." Brad zipped up his suitcase with a finality that made me flinch. "Things change.
I want a family, Vivian.
I want kids. And if you're not on board, then I'll find someone who is." The casual cruelty of his words hit me like a physical blow. "So that's it? 5 years of marriage, and you're willing to throw it all away because I'm not ready to have a baby right this second." He shrugged, the gesture so dismissive it made my blood boil. "It's not just about right now. It's about priorities. And clearly, we have different ones." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't the man I married, the one who'd promised to stand by me through thick and thin. What happened to for better or for worse? What happened to building a life together? Brad hefted his suitcase off the bed. "Life is what I'm trying to build, Vivian. A real family. If you're not interested in that, then I guess we don't have much left to say to each other." He brushed past me, heading for the door. I followed him, my mind racing.
Brad, wait. Please.
"We can compromise. Maybe we can start trying in a few months, or dash." He cut me off with a sharp laugh. "A few months? You've been saying that for a year. I'm done waiting." As he reached for the doorknob, a terrible thought struck me. Is there someone else? Brad's hesitation before answering told me everything I needed to know. "That's not the point," he said finally. "Like hell it isn't." I shouted, anger overriding my shock. "You've been cheating on me?" He turned to face me, his expression a mixture of defiance and something that might have been guilt. "I met someone who wants the same things I do. She understands the importance of family." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "How long? Does it matter?" "It matters to me," I screamed, tears finally spilling over. Brad sighed, looking almost bored. "A few months. But Vivian, try to understand. Julia and we connect on a level that dash." "Get out," I whispered, cutting him off. "Vivian dash." I said get out. I grabbed the nearest object, a framed photo of our wedding day, and hurled it at him. It shattered against the wall as Brad ducked out the door. I stood there, shaking, as the sound of his car starting up and driving away faded into the distance. My world had just imploded, and I was left standing in the wreckage, wondering how I'd ever put the pieces back together. I stumbled through the next few days in a haze, barely eating or sleeping. The house felt cavernous and empty without Brad, every corner a reminder of our shattered life together. On the fourth day, I finally mustered the strength to call Lisa. Viv, oh my God, are you okay? I've been worried sick. Lisa's voice was a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink. He's gone, Lisa, I choked out. Brad left me. What? That bastard. I'm coming over right now. True to her word, Lisa arrived at my doorstep within the hour, armed with a bottle of wine and a fierce determination to help me through this. As we sat on my couch, glasses in hand, I poured out the whole sordid tale. Lisa listened, her expression growing darker with each word. I can't believe he gave you an ultimatum like that, she fumed. And then just walked out? After 5 years. I nodded miserably. He said he'd found someone who wants the same things he does. Someone named Julia. Lisa's sharp intake of breath made me look up.
What?
What is it? She hesitated, then set down her glass. Viv, there's something I need to tell you. I've seen Brad with another woman. At work functions, grabbing coffee. I didn't want to say anything without being sure, but it's her, isn't it? I whispered. Julia. Lisa nodded, her eyes full of sympathy. I'm so sorry, honey. I should have told you sooner. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. How long? I managed to ask. A few months, at least, Lisa admitted. I first noticed them together at the company picnic in May. 4 months ago. While I'd been planning our anniversary trip, Brad had been falling for someone else. I feel so stupid, I said, tears welling up again. How did I not see it? Lisa wrapped an arm around me. This is not your fault, Viv. Brad's the one who broke his vows, not you. As the wine flowed and the night wore on, I found myself examining my relationship with Brad in a harsh new light. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of our marriage had revolved around his desires, his timeline. You know what the worst part is? I said, staring into my empty glass. I'm starting to think he never really loved me at all. It was always about having kids, starting a family. I was just convenient. Lisa squeezed my hand. Don't say that. You're an amazing woman, Viv. Any man would be lucky to have you. But the seed of doubt had been planted. I thought back to our whirlwind courtship, how quickly Brad had wanted to get married, how he'd started talking about kids on our honeymoon. Had I just been a means to an end for him? I gave him 5 years of my life, I said, anger finally breaking through the fog of grief. 5 years, and he throws it all away for some younger model who's ready to pop out babies on demand? Lisa's eyes flashed with righteous fury. He doesn't deserve you, Viv. And, trust me, karma's going to catch up with him eventually. As the night wore on, Lisa's unwavering support began to bolster my spirits. By the time she left, promising to check in on me daily, I felt a tiny spark of hope rekindling in my chest. I might be down, but I wasn't out. Brad had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. I could wallow in misery, or I could pick myself up and start rebuilding my life. As I crawled into bed that night, exhausted but clear-headed for the first time in days, I made a silent vow to myself. I would not let Brad's betrayal define me. I would emerge from this stronger, wiser, and ready to find the kind of love I truly deserved. Little did I know that love was waiting just around the corner, ready to change my life in ways I never could have imagined. 6 months after Brad's departure, I found myself at a charity gala, coordinating the event with a newfound passion for my work. The sting of betrayal had faded, replaced by a determination to rebuild my life on my own terms. As I surveyed the bustling ballroom, a tall, dark-haired man caught my eye. He was fiddling with a camera, a look of intense concentration on his face. Need a hand? I offered, approaching him. He looked up, startled, then broke into a warm smile. That obvious, huh? I'm Alex. Graphic designer by trade, amateur photographer by night. Vivian, I replied, returning his smile. Event planner and your savior for the evening. We spent the next hour chatting between his photo sessions and my event management duties. Alex was witty, kind, and refreshingly genuine. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers and made plans for coffee. Our first date turned into a second, then a third. Before I knew it, Alex had become a constant in my life, his steady presence healing wounds I didn't even know I still had. One night, as we strolled through the park, hand in hand, Alex turned to me with a serious expression. "Viv, there's something I need to ask you," he began, his voice trembling slightly. My heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through me. Alex dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Vivian Miller, will you marry me?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As Alex slipped the ring onto my finger, I felt a surge of joy I hadn't experienced in years. Later that night, curled up on Alex's couch, I confessed my lingering fears about marriage and children. "Alex, I need you to know, I'm not sure if I'm ready for kids yet. My ex-husband, he..." Alex silenced me with a gentle kiss. "Viv, listen to me. Having children is a decision we'll make together when we're both ready. There's no rush, no ultimatum. I love you for you, not for some hypothetical future family." His words washed over me like a balm, soothing fears I didn't even realize I still harbored. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding planning and domestic bliss. Alex and I moved in together, merging our lives with an ease that still amazed me. On our wedding day, as I walked down the aisle towards Alex, I felt a sense of rightness I'd never experienced before. This was what love was supposed to feel like: supportive, nurturing, and free from pressure or conditions. As we exchanged vows, Alex's eyes shining with unshed tears, I silently thanked the universe for bringing him into my life. "I promise to love you, support you, and stand by you through whatever life throws our way," Alex said, his voice steady and sure. "You are my partner, my equal, and my best friend. I can't wait to build a life with you, whatever that may look like." At the reception, Lisa pulled me aside, her face glowing with happiness for me. "I told you karma would work its magic, didn't I?" she said with a wink. "Alex is perfect for you, Viv. I'm so glad you found each other." As Alex and I swayed on the dance floor for our first dance, I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling truly at peace for the first time in years. "Thank you," I whispered. Alex pulled back slightly, looking at me quizzically. "For what?" "For loving me, for being patient, for showing me what a real partnership looks like." He smiled, pulling me close again. "Always, Viv. We're in this together, now and forever." As the night wore on, surrounded by friends and family, I realized that my failed marriage with Brad hadn't been an ending, but a beginning. It had led me here, to this moment, to this man who loved me unconditionally. The future stretched out before us, full of promise and possibility. Whatever came next, I knew Alex and I would face it together, as true partners should. Life with Alex was everything I'd ever dreamed of and more. Our first year of marriage flew by in a blissful whirlwind of love, laughter, and mutual support. We'd settled into a cozy routine, balancing our careers with quality time together, and I never felt more content. It was on a crisp autumn morning that I first noticed something was different. The wave of nausea hit me as I was getting ready for work, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. The fatigue, the mood swings, the strange food cravings, it all made sense. With trembling hands, I took a pregnancy test. Those 2 minutes felt like an eternity, but when I saw the positive result, my heart soared. Alex and I hadn't been actively trying, but we'd agreed to let nature take its course. And now, it seemed, nature had spoken. That evening, I surprised Alex with a special dinner. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't contain my excitement any longer. "Alex, I have something to tell you," I began, my voice quivering with emotion. He looked up, concern flashing across his face. "Is everything okay, Viv?" I nodded, tears of joy welling up in my eyes. "More than okay. Alex, we're going to have a baby." The look of pure joy that spread across his face is something I'll never forget. He leapt from his chair, scooping me up in a tight embrace. "Oh, Viv," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "This is amazing. We're going to be parents. The next few months were a whirlwind of doctor's appointments, nursery planning, and shared excitement. Alex was there every step of the way, holding my hand during ultrasounds, indulging my midnight cravings, and reassuring me through moments of doubt. One afternoon, as we were poring over baby name books, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Curious, I answered. "Hello." "Vivian." The voice sent a chill down my spine.
Brad.
"What do you want, Brad?" I asked, my tone icy. Alex looked up, concern etched on his face. "I heard you're pregnant," Brad said, his voice dripping with bitterness. "Funny how that worked out, isn't it? You wouldn't have a kid with me, but you're happy to pop one out for your new husband." I felt a surge of anger. "That's none of your business, Brad. How did you even find out?" He ignored my question. "I always knew you were lying about not being ready. You just didn't want to have a family with me." "What was wrong with me, Vivian? Was I not good enough for you?" "Brad, stop it," I snapped. "Our marriage ended because you gave me an ultimatum and cheated on me. My pregnancy now has nothing to do with you. Please don't contact me again." I hung up, my hands shaking. Alex was by my side in an instant, wrapping me in a comforting embrace. "Was that Brad?" he asked gently. I nodded, fighting back tears. "He found out about the baby somehow. He accused me of lying about not being ready for children when we were together." Alex's jaw clenched, but his voice remained calm. "Viv, you know that's not true. We made this decision together when we were both ready. Don't let him get to you." I took a deep breath, letting Alex's words wash over me. He was right. This pregnancy, this child, was a product of love and mutual decision-making, not manipulation or ultimatums. "You're right," I said, managing a small smile. "This is our moment, and I won't let Brad taint it." As if in agreement, I felt a small flutter in my belly, our baby's first kick. I gasped, grabbing Alex's hand and placing it on my stomach. "Feel that?" I whispered. Alex's eyes widened in wonder. "Is that?" I nodded, tears of joy replacing those of frustration. "That's our baby, Alex. Our little miracle." As we stood there, marveling at the life we'd created together, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, be it Brad's bitterness or the trials of parenthood, Alex and I would face them together, united in our love for each other and our growing family. The doorbell rang on a quiet Sunday afternoon, startling me from my peaceful nap on the couch. At 6 months pregnant, unexpected visitors were the last thing I wanted. Alex was out running errands, so I heaved myself up with a sigh and waddled to the door. I opened it to find a young woman standing there, her eyes red-rimmed and her posture nervous. She looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Can I help you?" I asked, instinctively resting a hand on my swollen belly. The woman's eyes darted to my stomach, then back to my face. "Are you Vivian? Vivian Miller?" I nodded, suddenly wary. "Yes, that's me. And you are?" "I'm Julia," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Julia Harris. I'm Brad's wife." The world seemed to tilt for a moment. Julia, the woman Brad had left me for. The one he'd claimed understood the importance of family. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. Julia flinched. "I'm sorry to bother you. I didn't know where else to go."
Can we talk?
"Please." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside to let her in. As she passed, I noticed the slight swell of her own stomach. So Brad had gotten what he wanted after all. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before Julia spoke again. "I know this is strange, me coming here like this, but I needed to talk to someone who might understand." "Understand what?" I asked, still guarded. Julia's eyes welled with tears. "What it's like to be married to Brad." And then, like a dam bursting, Julia poured out her story. How Brad had swept her off her feet, promising her the world and a perfect family. How quickly things had changed after their wedding. The constant pressure to get pregnant, the mood swings, the emotional manipulation. "He's obsessed with having a baby," Julia said, wiping her eyes. "And now that I am pregnant, it's even worse. Nothing I do is right. He criticizes everything: what I eat, how I sleep, even how I breathe. He says I'm going to be a terrible mother. As I listened, a chill ran down my spine. It was like hearing my own experiences reflected back at me, but amplified. Has he? I hesitated, not wanting to overstep. Has he ever hurt you physically? Julia shook her head. No, never. But sometimes. Sometimes I'm afraid he might. He gets so angry, Vivian. I don't know what to do. I reached out and took her hand, my earlier reservations melting away. Julia, listen to me. What Brad is doing is not okay. It's emotional abuse, and you don't have to put up with it. But the baby, she whispered, placing a protective hand on her stomach. I can't leave now. He'll never let me go. You can and you must, I said firmly, for your sake and your child's. There are resources, people who can help. As we talked, I shared my own experiences with Brad, the manipulation and gaslighting I'd endured. Julia listened, her eyes widening with recognition. I thought I was crazy, she said. He always makes everything sound like it's my fault. That's what abusers do, I told her gently. They make you doubt yourself. But Julia, you're stronger than you know. By the time Alex returned home, Julia and I had formulated a plan. I'd given her the number of my divorce lawyer and information on local women's shelters. She left with a glimmer of hope in her eyes that hadn't been there when she arrived. As I watched her drive away, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Brad for continuing his manipulative behavior, sadness for Julia and the difficult road ahead of her, but also a sense of purpose. I couldn't change the past, but maybe, just maybe, I could help prevent another woman from enduring what I had. Alex wrapped his arms around me from behind, his hands resting on our growing child. Everything okay, love? I leaned back into his embrace, grateful for his steady presence. It will be, I said, determination in my voice. It will be. 2 weeks after Julia's unexpected visit, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Julia, asking to meet at a quiet cafe across town. Despite my growing belly making movement increasingly difficult, I agreed, sensing the urgency in her message. When I arrived, Julia was already there, her eyes darting nervously around the room. As I lowered myself into the chair across from her, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands. Julia, what's wrong? I asked, concern etching my features. She took a shaky breath. It's Brad. He's gone completely off the deep end, Vivian. Julia's words tumbled out in a rush. She explained how Brad's obsession with having children had reached new heights. Despite her pregnancy progressing normally, he'd become convinced that something was wrong. He keeps saying the baby can't be his, Julia said, her voice barely above a whisper. He's demanding a paternity test. Says I must have cheated because there's no way he could have any issues. I felt a chill run down my spine. Has he hurt you, Julia? She shook her head. Not physically, but the things he says, the way he looks at me. I'm scared, Vivian, for myself and for the baby. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Have you considered leaving? Remember the resources we talked about? Julia nodded. I've been in touch with a lawyer. But Brad, he's relentless. He's even threatened to sue for full custody once the baby is born. As we talked, Julia revealed more about Brad's erratic behavior. His refusal to attend doctor's appointments, his late-night rants about her supposed infidelity, his increasing isolation of her from friends and family. I agreed to the paternity test, Julia admitted, her eyes downcast. I thought it would put his mind at ease. But when the results came back, let me guess, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. The baby is his. Julia nodded. 100%. But instead of calming him down, it's made things worse. Now he's convinced the doctors are in on some conspiracy against him. I sat back, my mind reeling. The Brad I'd known had been controlling and manipulative, but this level of paranoia and abuse was beyond anything I'd experienced. Julia, I said, my voice firm, you need to leave.
Now.
This isn't just about you anymore. Your baby deserves better than to be born into this toxic environment. Tears welled up in Julia's eyes. I know. God, I know. But I'm so scared, Vivian. What if he comes after me? I squeezed her hand again. We won't let that happen. I'll help you. We'll get you somewhere safe. As we formulated a plan, I felt a mix of emotions churning inside me. Anger at Brad for continuing his cycle of abuse, fear for Julia and her unborn child, and a grim determination to put an end to his manipulations once and for all. By the time we left the cafe, Julia had a tentative smile on her face. We'd contacted her lawyer, made arrangements with a women's shelter, and set a date for her to leave Brad for good. As I watched her drive away, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Lisa.
We need to talk, it read.
It's about Brad. Things at work are getting ugly. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever was coming next. It seemed the house of cards Brad had built was finally starting to collapse. And as much as I wanted to wash my hands of him entirely, I knew I couldn't stand by and watch him hurt more people. With one hand on my belly, feeling my own child move within me, I made a silent vow. This ended now. For Julia, for her baby, and for every other woman Brad might try to manipulate in the future. It was time to face the monster I'd once called my husband and put an end to his reign of emotional terror once and for all. The day Julia filed for divorce, all hell broke loose. I received a frantic call from her as she left the courthouse, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. "I did it, Vivian," she said, her words rushed. "I filed the papers. But Brad, he's furious. He's threatening to ruin me, to take everything." I tried to calm her, assuring her that she'd made the right decision, when my call waiting beeped. It was Lisa. "Julia, I have to go," I said quickly. "Stay safe. Call me if you need anything." I switched over to Lisa's call, my heart racing. "Lisa, what's going on?" "Viv, you need to get down to the office.
Now."
Lisa's voice was tight with tension. "Brad's gone off the deep end. He's telling everyone who'll listen that you're to blame for everything. His failed marriages, his issues with Julia, even his work problems." I felt a surge of anger.
What?
"That's ridiculous." "I know, but it's worse than that," Lisa continued. "He's been engaging in some seriously unethical behavior at work. Falsifying reports, harassing female employees. I've been gathering evidence for weeks, and I'm about to present it to the board. But I think you should be here." My mind reeled. I knew Brad was capable of manipulation, but this level of deceit and misconduct was beyond anything I'd imagined. "I'm on my way," I said, already reaching for my keys. Alex insisted on driving me, worry etched on his face. As we pulled into the company parking lot, I saw a commotion near the entrance. Brad was there, his face red with rage, shouting at a group of employees. "It's all her fault," he was yelling, pointing wildly. "Vivian ruined everything. She's poisoned all of you against me." I took a deep breath, squeezing Alex's hand before stepping out of the car. As I approached, Brad's eyes locked onto me, filled with a hatred that sent chills down my spine. "You," he snarled, lunging towards me. Alex quickly stepped between us, his stance protective. "That's enough, Brad." Lisa's voice cut through the chaos. She emerged from the building, flanked by 2 security guards and what looked like members of the company board. "Mr. Miller," one of the board members said sternly, "your behavior is completely unacceptable. We've heard Ms. Thompson's evidence, and coupled with your actions today, we have no choice but to terminate your employment effective immediately." Brad's face went pale. "You can't do this to me," he stammered. "It's all lies. Vivian put you up to this, didn't she?" I shook my head, feeling a mix of pity and disgust.
This is all you, Brad.
Your choices, your actions. It's time to face the consequences. As security began to escort Brad from the premises, he made one last desperate lunge towards me. "You ruined my life," he shouted. "You and that whore Julia. I'll make you both pay for this." Alex stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "That's enough. You come near Vivian or Julia again, and you'll have me to deal with." We watched as Brad was led away, his threats fading into incoherent ramblings. The gathered crowd began to disperse, murmuring in shock and disbelief. Lisa approached us, looking exhausted but relieved. "It's over," she said softly. "The board's filing a formal complaint with the police about his behavior. And with the evidence I've gathered, he'll be lucky if he ever works in this industry again." I felt a wave of emotions wash over me: relief, vindication, and a lingering sadness for the man I once thought I loved. "Thank you, Lisa," I said, hugging her tightly, "for everything." As we drove home, Alex's hand firmly clasped in mine, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Brad's reign of manipulation and abuse was finally over. Julia was free, I was free, and any future women he might have hurt were now protected. "Are you okay?" Alex asked softly, glancing at me. I nodded, resting a hand on my swollen belly. "Yeah, I think I am. For the first time in a long time, I really think I am." As we pulled into our driveway, I allowed myself to look forward to the future, a future free from Brad's toxic influence, filled instead with the love and support of my true family. The first cry of my newborn son pierced the air, and in that moment, all the pain and struggle of the past melted away. I looked up at Alex, his eyes brimming with tears of joy, and felt an overwhelming surge of love for my little family. "He's perfect," Alex whispered, gently cradling our son. "What should we name him?" I smiled, exhausted but elated.
Peter.
"Let's call him Peter." As I held Peter in my arms, marveling at his tiny fingers and button nose, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of Brad's betrayal, the unexpected friendship with Julia, the confrontation at the office, it all seemed like a distant dream now. A week after we brought Peter home, Lisa came to visit. As she cooed over the baby, her expression grew serious. "Viv, I have some news about Brad," she said hesitantly. I tensed, instinctively holding Peter closer. "What is it?" Lisa sighed. "He's under investigation for workplace harassment. Turns out, his behavior at our company was just the tip of the iceberg. Several women from his previous jobs have come forward with complaints." I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Brad's continued misconduct, relief that he was facing consequences, and a twinge of sadness for the man I once thought I knew. "And Julia?" I asked, thinking of the scared, pregnant woman who had sought my help. "She's doing well," Lisa assured me. "The divorce is finalized, and she's staying with her sister. Her baby is due next month." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. Brad's actions had hurt so many people, but now, finally, justice was being served. As the weeks passed, I settled into motherhood with Alex by my side. Every sleepless night, every diaper change, every tiny milestone, we faced it all together, our love growing stronger with each passing day. One sunny afternoon, as we sat in the park watching Peter nap in his stroller, Alex turned to me with a serious expression. "Viv, I want you to know something," he said, taking my hand. "I'm so grateful for you and Peter. You've given me more happiness than I ever thought possible." I squeezed his hand, feeling my heart swell. "You've done the same for me, Alex. You showed me what real love and partnership look like." He smiled, then continued, "I know the journey to get here wasn't easy, but I want you to know that I'll always be here, supporting you and Peter, no matter what life throws our way." Tears welled up in my eyes as I leaned in to kiss him. "I know you will. That's why I love you so much." As we sat there, basking in the warmth of our love and the promise of our future together, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The pain and betrayal of my past with Brad had led me here, to this moment of pure happiness with Alex and Peter. I thought of Julia, hoping she too had found peace and the strength to build a new life for herself and her child. I silently thanked Lisa for her unwavering friendship and support through it all. Looking down at Peter, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath, I made a silent vow. I would cherish every moment with my family, nurture the love Alex and I shared, and always remember the lessons I'd learned about self-worth and true partnership. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The road had been long and often painful, but it had led me here, to a life filled with love, respect, and the joy of true family. Alex stood up, gently lifting Peter from the stroller. "Ready to head home?" he asked, smiling down at me. I nodded, rising to join them. "Yes," I said, linking my arm through his. "Let's go home." As we walked away, Peter nestled safely between us. I knew that whatever challenges the future might hold, we would face them together, a true family bound by love, trust, and mutual respect. The shadows of the past had faded, replaced by the bright promise of our future together. My name is Briar Callahan, and I never thought I'd be plotting revenge against my mother-in-law. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? To new beginnings. I clinked my champagne flute against Kellen's, grinning as we stood in the empty living room of our first home. The hardwood floors gleamed, and sunlight streamed through the bay windows, painting everything in a golden glow. Kellen wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me close. "Can you believe it, babe? We did it." I leaned into him, savoring the moment. After years of saving and dreaming, we finally had a place to call our own. No more cramped apartments or nosy neighbors. Just us, building our future together. The doorbell rang, shattering our peaceful bubble. Who could that be? I frowned. We haven't even told anyone our new address yet. Kellen shrugged. Maybe it's a welcome wagon or something? I opened the door, and my stomach dropped. There, on our brand new welcome mat, stood Marjorie, Kellen's mother, surrounded by a mountain of luggage. "Surprise." She beamed, pushing past me into the house. "Oh, isn't this lovely? A bit small, but we'll make do." I blinked, struggling to process what was happening. "Marjorie, what are you doing here?" Kellen appeared beside me, his face a mix of confusion and concern.
Mom?
"Is everything okay?" Marjorie's smile faltered, and she dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. "Oh, my dears, I'm afraid I have some terrible news. I've lost my house."
What? Kellen exclaimed. How?
She launched into a sob story about unexpected debts and predatory lenders. I listened with growing unease, something about her tale not quite adding up. "I hate to impose," Marjorie sniffled, "but I have nowhere else to go. I was hoping maybe I could stay here, just until I get back on my feet." Kellen immediately moved to comfort her. "Of course, Mom. We'll figure something out." I cleared my throat. "Kellen, can I talk to you for a second?" "In private." We stepped into the kitchen, and I lowered my voice. "Don't you think this is a little
Convenient?
She shows up unannounced on the day we move in." He frowned. "What are you implying?" "She's my mother, Briar. She needs our help." "I know, but what?" His tone sharpened. "We can't just turn her away." I sighed, knowing I was fighting a losing battle. "You're right.
I'm sorry.
It's just, this is supposed to be our fresh start." Kellen's expression softened. He cupped my face in his hands. "It still is. We'll make it work, okay? I promise." I nodded, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. We returned to the living room, where Marjorie was already making herself at home, rearranging our carefully chosen throw pillows. "So," she chirped, "which room is mine?" Kellen and I exchanged glances. We haven't really set up the guest room yet," I said. "But we can get an air mattress for now." Marjorie's lips pursed. "An air mattress? At my age? Really, Briar, I expected better from you." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that this was temporary, just until she got back on her feet. How long could that possibly take? As it turned out, longer than I ever could have imagined. What started as a few days turned into weeks, then months. Marjorie's presence seeped into every corner of our lives, her criticisms and manipulations a constant undercurrent. I tried to be patient, to be understanding. But with each passing day, I felt the dream of our perfect life slipping further away. And as I watched Marjorie work her magic on Kellen, twisting him around her little finger, I knew something had to give. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a war I never asked for, but one I was determined to win. I woke to the sound of Marjorie's shrill voice echoing through our once peaceful home. Kellen, darling, have you seen my reading glasses? I swear I left them right here on the coffee table. Groaning, I buried my face in the pillow. It had been 3 weeks since Marjorie's unexpected arrival, and each day felt like an eternity. I glanced at the clock, 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday. I'll help you look, Mom. Kellen's muffled voice came from the hallway. I dragged myself out of bed, knowing any chance of sleeping in was gone. In the kitchen, I found Marjorie rifling through drawers while Kellen searched behind couch cushions. Good morning, I mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. Marjorie's eyes narrowed. Oh, Briar. I didn't realize you were up. I hope we didn't wake you with all the commotion. It's fine, I lied, forcing a smile. How about some breakfast? Actually, Marjorie sniffed. I was thinking we could go out for brunch. There's this lovely little place downtown I've been dying to try. I hesitated. We were planning to repaint the guest room today, remember? Oh, that old thing? Marjorie waved dismissively. It can wait. Family time is more important, isn't it, Kellen?
Kellen looked torn.
Well, we did promise to get it done this weekend. But your mother wants to spend time with us, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Surely that takes precedence. Marjorie's lips curled into a triumphant smile.
See?
Briar understands. Now let me just freshen up and we'll be on our way. As soon as she left the room, I turned to Kellen.
We can't keep doing this.
She's taking over our lives. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know it's been an adjustment, but she's family. We have to support her. And what about supporting each other? I countered. When was the last time we had a moment alone? Before Kellen could respond, Marjorie reappeared, her face plastered with a saccharine smile. Ready to go, dears? At the restaurant, Marjorie dominated the conversation, peppering Kellen with questions about his work and childhood memories. I picked at my food, feeling increasingly invisible. You know, Marjorie said, patting Kellen's hand, you remind me so much of your father. He was always such a hard worker, right up until the end. I perked up, sensing an opportunity. I'd love to hear more about Kellen's father. You don't talk about him much. Marjorie's smile faltered for a split second. Oh, it's all ancient history now. No use dwelling on the past. But surely you have some happy memories to share? I pressed. Briar, Kellen warned, shooting me a look. Marjorie's eyes hardened. I think that's quite enough trip down memory lane for one day. Kellen, be a dear and ask for the check. As we drove home, tension hung thick in the air. Marjorie broke the silence, her voice dripping with false concern. Briar, I couldn't help but notice you seem a bit stressed lately. Is everything all right at work? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Actually, I've been looking for a new job. The market's tough right now. Oh, that's right. Marjorie clucked sympathetically. You lost your position, didn't you?
Such a shame.
Have you considered something a little less demanding? Maybe part-time work would be better suited to your skills. I bit my tongue, knowing any response would only make things worse. Kellen remained silent, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. That night, as we got ready for bed, I couldn't hold back anymore. Kellen, we need to talk about your mother. He sighed heavily. Can we not do this now? I'm exhausted. When then? I demanded. Because every day she's here, I feel like I'm losing a piece of myself and you. Kellen's expression softened. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment I allowed myself to hope. It'll get better, he murmured. We just need to give it time. But as I lay awake that night, listening to Marjorie's snores from the guest room, I knew something had to change. And if Kellen wouldn't see it, I'd have to make him see before it was too late. I stared at my computer screen, my heart sinking as I read the rejection email. Another job opportunity slipped through my fingers. That made 5 in the past 2 weeks, all positions I was more than qualified for. Something wasn't adding up. Any luck, dear? Marjorie's saccharine voice drifted from the doorway. I quickly closed my laptop. Not yet, I replied, forcing a smile. But I'm sure something will turn up soon. Marjorie sked sympathetically. Well, Don't worry yourself too much. Kellen's doing so well at work. I'm sure he can support us all. Us all. The words grated on my nerves. I opened my mouth to retort when my phone buzzed. A text from my friend Zoe. Coffee? We need to talk. An hour later, I sat across from Zoe in our favorite cafe, clutching a latte like a lifeline. Briar, I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, Zoe began, her expression grave. But I overheard Marjorie on the phone yesterday. She was talking to someone about your job applications. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Zoe leaned in, lowering her voice. She was bragging about how she'd been calling your potential employers, posing as a reference. Saying awful things about you, Briar. Sabotaging your chances. The world tilted on its axis. Suddenly, everything made sense. The string of rejections, Marjorie's false sympathy, her comments about Kellen supporting us all. I'm going to kill her, I growled, my hands shaking with rage. Zoe grabbed my arm.
Whoa, slow down.
You need to talk to Kellen first. Make him see what's really going on. I nodded, my mind racing. You're right. This ends now. Back at home, I found Kellen in the kitchen, Marjorie hovering nearby as always. We need to talk, I said, my voice steely. Alone. Marjorie's eyes narrowed, but Kellen nodded, following me to our bedroom. I closed the door and took a deep breath. Your mother has been sabotaging my job search, I said, the words tumbling out. She's been calling potential employers, lying about me, making sure I don't get hired. Kellen's face clouded with disbelief. Briar, that's a serious accusation. Are you sure? Zoe overheard her bragging about it on the phone. I insisted. Think about it, Kellen. How else do you explain all these rejections? He ran a hand through his hair, conflicted. But why would she do that? To keep me dependent, to drive a wedge between us, I said, my voice breaking. Kellen, I can't do this anymore. Something has to change. His expression hardened. What are you saying? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I'm saying it's time for Marjorie to leave. If she doesn't go, I will. Kellen's eyes widened in shock. You can't be serious. She's my mother, Briar. We can't just throw her out on the street. And I'm your wife. I shot back. Don't I matter? Don't we matter? Before Kellen could respond, the door burst open. Marjorie stood there, her face a mask of hurt and indignation. I heard everything, she said, her voice trembling. How could you, Briar? After all I've done for this family? Kellen turned to his mother, his expression torn. Mom, is it true? Have you been interfering with Briar's job search? Marjorie's eyes welled with tears. Of course not. How could you even think such a thing? I've only ever wanted what's best for both of you. She's lying, I hissed, but Marjorie was on a roll. I've tried so hard to fit in, to be helpful, she wailed. And this is how you repay me? By trying to turn my own son against me. Kellen looked between us, clearly overwhelmed. I think we all need to calm down, and… No, I interrupted, my patience finally snapping. I'm done calming down. I'm done pretending everything's fine when it's not. Kellen, you need to choose.
Right now.
It's her or me. The silence that followed was deafening. Marjorie's sobs filled the air as Kellen stood frozen, caught between the two women in his life. In that moment, I realized I might have just made the biggest mistake of my life. But as I looked at Marjorie's triumphant smirk hidden behind her handkerchief, I knew I couldn't back down now. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. The tension in our house was unbearable. Kellen had retreated into himself, spending long hours at work and barely speaking when he was home. Marjorie, on the other hand, had ramped up her efforts to play the doting mother, cooking elaborate meals and fussing over Kellen's every need. I was at my wits' end, feeling like a stranger in my own home. That's when it happened. I woke to the sound of a crash and Marjorie's piercing scream. Heart pounding, I rushed downstairs to find her crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, Kellen kneeling beside her.
Mom.
Are you okay? Kellen's voice was frantic. Marjorie moaned dramatically. Oh, my heart,
I think.
I need to go to the hospital. I stood frozen, a nagging suspicion growing in the pit of my stomach. Something about this scene felt off, too perfectly timed. At the hospital, we waited anxiously as doctors ran tests. Kellen paced the waiting room, his face etched with worry. I tried to comfort him, but he shrugged off my touch. Finally, a doctor approached us. Mrs. Callahan is stable, he said, but she's had a mild heart attack. She'll need to stay for observation and follow up with a cardiologist. Kellen's shoulders sagged with relief. Can we see her? We entered Marjorie's room to find her looking pale but alert. Her eyes locked onto Kellen. Oh, my darling boy, she whimpered. I was so frightened. As Kellen rushed to her bedside, I hung back, observing. Marjorie's performance was flawless, the trembling hands, the weak voice. But something in her eyes, a glimmer of satisfaction, made my skin crawl. The doctor says you need to take it easy for a while, Kellen said, holding her hand. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. Marjorie's gaze flicked to me, a hint of triumph in her smile. You're both so good to me. I don't know what I'd do without you. That night, as Kellen slept fitfully beside me, I made a decision. If no one else was going to uncover the truth about Marjorie, I would do it myself. The next day, while Kellen was at the hospital, I began my investigation. I started with a simple Google search of Marjorie's name, which led me down a rabbit hole of old newspaper articles and public records. What I found made my blood run cold. Marjorie had a history of financial troubles, but they weren't the result of bad luck or predatory lenders. She had been sued multiple times for fraud and embezzlement. And her late husband, Kellen's father, had died under mysterious circumstances, right after changing his life insurance policy to name Marjorie as the sole beneficiary. I was so engrossed in my research that I didn't hear Kellen come home. He found me surrounded by printouts and scribbled notes. What's all this? He asked, his voice tight. I took a deep breath. Kellen, there's something you need to see. As I laid out the evidence of Marjorie's past misdeeds, Kellen's face went through a range of emotions: disbelief, anger, and finally, a deep, crushing sadness. This can't be true, he whispered. She's my mother. I know it's hard to accept, I said gently, but we can't ignore the facts. Kellen stood abruptly. I need some air. As the front door slammed behind him, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Back off, or things will get much worse. For everyone. A chill ran down my spine. Marjorie knew I was onto her, and she wasn't going to go down without a fight. That night, as I lay awake listening to Kellen's restless tossing and turning, I realized we had reached a point of no return. The truth about Marjorie was out there, waiting to be fully uncovered. But at what cost to my marriage, to the life Kellen and I had built together? I closed my eyes, steeling myself for the battle ahead. Whatever Marjorie had planned, I would be ready. The stakes were too high to back down now. The morning after my late-night discovery, I woke to an empty bed. Kellen had left early for work, avoiding another confrontation. I couldn't blame him. The truth about his mother was a bitter pill to swallow. I spent the day digging deeper into Marjorie's past, following every lead I could find. By afternoon, I had uncovered a trail of financial irregularities that made my head spin. But the real bombshell came when I stumbled upon records of multiple bank accounts in Marjorie's name, all opened within weeks of her husband's death. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. Deposits totaling over $1 million, far more than Marjorie had ever claimed to have. And the source? Life insurance payouts. Oh my God, I whispered, the pieces finally falling into place. Marjorie wasn't destitute. She was sitting on a fortune while playing the penniless widow. I was so engrossed in my findings that I didn't hear the front door open. Marjorie's voice made me jump. What are you up to, dear? She asked, her tones sickly sweet. I slammed my laptop shut. Just job hunting. I lied, my heart racing. Marjorie's eyes narrowed. Still no luck?
Such a shame.
I was thinking, perhaps it's time you considered a different path. Kellen makes more than enough to support us both. The implication in her words was clear. She wanted me out of the picture, financially dependent and powerless. I forced a smile. I appreciate your concern, Marjorie, but I'm not giving up just yet. She patted my hand, her grip just a little too tight. Of course, dear. Just remember, family comes first. As she left the room, I let out a shaky breath. The threat in her words was unmistakable. I had to act fast. That evening, I cornered Kellen in our bedroom. We need to talk about your mother, I said, my voice firm. He sighed, shoulders slumping. Briar, please. Not this again. Just hear me out, I pleaded. I laid out everything I'd found, the hidden bank accounts, the life insurance money, the pattern of deceit stretching back years. Kellen listened in stunned silence, his face growing paler with each revelation. When I finished, he sat heavily on the bed, head in his hands. I can't believe this, he murmured. All these years. She lied to me about everything. I sat beside him, taking his hand. I'm so sorry, Kellen. I know how much this hurts. He looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of pain and anger. What do we do now? Before I could answer, a scream echoed through the house. We rushed downstairs to find Marjorie sprawled on the kitchen floor, clutching her chest. My heart, she gasped. Call an ambulance. Kellen immediately reached for his phone, but I grabbed his arm. Wait, I hissed. Think about it. This is exactly what she did last time when she felt cornered. He hesitated, torn between concern and suspicion. Marjorie's eyes darted between us, a flicker of panic crossing her face. Kellen, she whimpered. Please, your own mother. In that moment, I saw the doubt in Kellen's eyes harden into resolve. He lowered his phone. No more games, Mom. We know everything. Marjorie's demeanor changed in an instant. She stood up, all traces of weakness gone. Her eyes blazed with a cold fury I'd never seen before. You ungrateful children, she spat. After everything I've done for this family? You mean after everything you've stolen from this family, I shot back. Marjorie's laugh was bitter. You have no idea what I'm capable of. If you think you can expose me, think again. I'll burn this entire family to the ground before I let that happen. As she stormed out of the kitchen, Kellen and I exchanged glances. The battle lines were drawn, and the stakes had never been higher. We had the truth on our side, but Marjorie had years of manipulation and deceit. The final confrontation was coming, and we had to be ready. The tension in our house had reached a breaking point. Marjorie, sensing her web of lies unraveling, had become increasingly erratic. Kellen, torn between his love for me and his lifelong bond with his mother, was a shell of his former self. I knew it was time for the final confrontation. We need to end this, I told Kellen one morning. All of us, together. No more secrets, no more lies. He nodded, his eyes hollow.
How?
A family meeting, I said. We lay everything out on the table. That evening, we gathered in the living room. Marjorie sat primly on the sofa, her face a mask of innocence. Kellen paced nervously, while I stood my ground, armed with a folder full of evidence. What's this about? Marjorie asked, her voice syrupy sweet. I took a deep breath. It's time for the truth, Marjorie. All of it. Her eyes narrowed. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. I opened the folder, spreading documents across the coffee table. Bank statements, Marjorie. Life insurance policies. Court records. They tell quite a story. Marjorie's face paled, but she quickly recovered. Those could be anything. You're trying to turn my son against me with these fabrications. Kellen stepped forward, his voice shaking. Are they fabrications, Mom? Because they look real to me. Kellen, darling, Marjorie pleaded, reaching for his hand. You can't possibly believe these lies. After everything I've sacrificed for you. I pressed on, revealing each piece of evidence. The hidden bank accounts, the suspicious circumstances surrounding her husband's death, the pattern of fraud and deceit stretching back years. With each revelation, Marjorie's denials grew more frantic. She accused me of forgery, of manipulation, of trying to steal her son away. But I could see the doubt creeping into Kellen's eyes. Why, Mom? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do all this? Marjorie's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful child. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me? By siding with this gold digger. I felt a surge of triumph. Marjorie was losing control, showing her true colors. But I had one last card to play. There's more, I said, pulling out my phone. Something you can't deny. I pressed play on a video my friend Zoe had secretly recorded. Marjorie's voice filled the room, bragging to a friend about her schemes, her manipulation of Kellen, her plans to drive me away and secure her place in our home. The color drained from Marjorie's face as she watched herself on the screen, laying bare every lie she'd told. When the video ended, the silence was deafening. Kellen stared at his mother, a mixture of horror and heartbreak etched on his face. It's all true, he said, his voice hollow. Everything Briar said. You've been lying to me my entire life. Marjorie's demeanor changed in an instant. Gone was the sweet, doting mother. In her place stood a woman consumed by bitterness and greed. You think you've won? She snarled, her eyes blazing. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I'll destroy you both before I let you take what's mine. She lunged for the folder of evidence, but Kellen was faster. He grabbed her arm, holding her back. It's over, Mom, he said, his voice firm. No more lies. No more manipulation. Marjorie wrenched her arm free, her face a mask of fury. This isn't over, she hissed. You'll regret this, both of you. She stormed out of the room, leaving Kellen and me in stunned silence. As the front door slammed, I turned to Kellen, unsure of what to say. But before I could speak, he pulled me into a tight embrace. I'm so sorry, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. For doubting you, for not seeing the truth sooner. I held him close, feeling the tension of the past months finally start to ebb away. But as we stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marjorie's final threat wasn't empty. This battle was won, but the war wasn't over yet. The morning after our confrontation with Marjorie, Kellen and I woke to an eerie silence. The guest room was empty, Marjorie's belongings gone. For a moment, I dared to hope it was over. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You'll pay for this. Both of you. Kellen's face paled as I showed him the message. We need to do something, he said, his voice tight with worry. She won't stop until she's destroyed everything. I nodded, a plan already forming in my mind. It's time we took this to the authorities. We have enough evidence to press charges. As we prepared to leave for the police station, a frantic knock at the door startled us. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, looking panicked. There's a woman outside, she gasped. She's pouring something all over your car. We rushed outside to find Marjorie, wild-eyed and disheveled, emptying a gas can onto Kellen's car. The acrid smell of gasoline filled the air. Mom, Kellen shouted, horrified. What are you doing? Marjorie whirled to face us, a manic grin on her face. Teaching you both a lesson, she snarled, pulling out a lighter. Time seemed to slow. I saw the flame flicker to life, saw Marjorie's arm begin to move. Without thinking, I lunged forward, tackling her to the ground. The lighter flew from her hand, skittering across the pavement. Kellen was there in an instant, restraining his mother as she thrashed and screamed. Let me go. You ungrateful brats. I'll see you both ruined. Sirens wailed in the distance, Mrs. Chin must have called the police. As officers arrived on the scene, the full weight of what had just happened hit me. Marjorie had tried to destroy our property, possibly harm us. This was no longer just about money or manipulation. This was dangerous. At the police station, Kellen and I gave our statements, presenting all the evidence we had gathered. Marjorie, for her part, had retreated into stony silence, refusing to speak without a lawyer present. As we waited for news, Kellen turned to me, his eyes filled with a mix of pain and determination. I want to press charges, he said quietly. For everything. The fraud, the attempted arson, all of it. I squeezed his hand, knowing how difficult this decision was for him. Are you sure? He nodded. It's the only way to make sure she can't hurt anyone else. And I want to try to reclaim my father's inheritance. It was never hers to take. A detective approached us, her expression grave. We've reviewed your evidence and statements, she said. We're charging Marjorie Callahan with multiple counts of fraud, attempted arson, and threatening behavior. Given her actions and the risk she poses, she'll be held without bail pending trial. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered by the sadness in Kellen's eyes. This was his mother, after all, no matter what she had done. As we prepared to leave, an officer escorted Marjorie past us in handcuffs. She stopped, her eyes locking onto Kellen's. "How could you do this to your own mother?" she hissed. "After everything I've sacrificed for you?" Kellen stood tall, his voice steady. "You sacrificed nothing, Mom. You only took. From Dad, from me, from everyone around you. It stops now." For a moment, I saw something flicker in Marjorie's eyes, a hint of the mother Kellen must have once known. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by cold fury. "This isn't over," she spat as the officer led her away. "You haven't seen the last of me." As we watched her disappear down the hallway, Kellen sagged against me, the weight of everything finally hitting him. I held him close, knowing that while this chapter was closing, the road to healing would be long. "Let's go home," I whispered. "We have a lot to figure out." Kellen nodded, straightening up. As we walked out of the police station, hand in hand, I felt a glimmer of hope. The worst was over. Now, we could start rebuilding our lives, our relationship, and the future we had always dreamed of. 6 months after Marjorie's arrest, Kellen and I stood in the empty living room of our new home. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow on the freshly painted walls. It felt like a world away from the chaos and pain we'd endured. "Ready?" Kellen asked, a small smile playing on his lips. I nodded, taking his hand. "Ready." We walked out onto the porch, where a small group of friends and family had gathered. Zoe was there, along with Mrs. Chun and a few of our closest confidants who had supported us through the ordeal. Kellen cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. We wanted to share this moment with the people who stood by us during the darkest times." I squeezed his hand, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. This house represents a new chapter for us, a fresh start, free from the shadows of the past. As we chatted and gave tours of the house, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us here. The legal battle with Marjorie had been grueling, but ultimately successful. Kellen had reclaimed a significant portion of his father's estate, and Marjorie was serving time for her crimes. Later that evening, as our guests departed, Kellen and I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset. "I got a letter from Mom today," Kellen said quietly. I tensed. "What did it say?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's
Different.
the psychologist at the prison says she's making progress, acknowledging her actions, showing remorse." I nodded, unsure how to respond. The wounds were still fresh, the trust shattered. "I'm not ready to forgive her," Kellen continued. "I don't know if I ever will be. But I think I understand her a little better now. The fear, the desperation that drove her." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "You have a big heart, Kellen. It's one of the things I love most about you." He kissed the top of my head. "I couldn't have gotten through this without you, you know. Your strength, your determination. You saved us." "We saved each other," I corrected gently. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "Oh," I said, suddenly remembering. "I have some news." Kellen turned to me, eyebrow raised. "Good news, I hope?" I took a deep breath, a smile spreading across my face. "Remember that job interview I had last week? The one at the nonprofit?" He nodded eagerly. "I got it." I beamed. "I start next month." Kellen hooped, pulling me into a tight embrace. "That's incredible. I'm so proud of you, Briar." As we celebrated, I felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift from my shoulders. After months of uncertainty and struggle, things were finally falling into place. "Actually," I said, my heart racing with excitement and nerves, "I have one more piece of news." Kellen looked at me curiously. I took his hand, placing it gently on my stomach. We're going to have a baby. His eyes widened, a mix of shock and joy crossing his face. Are you serious? We're going to be parents. I nodded, happy tears welling in my eyes. Kellen pulled me close, laughing and crying at the same time. As we held each other, I thought about the journey ahead. There would be challenges, of course. The scars from Marjorie's betrayal wouldn't fade overnight. But we had weathered the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. Looking out at our new neighborhood, with Kellen's arms around me and the promise of new life growing inside me, I felt a profound sense of peace. We had faced the darkness and come out the other side. Whatever the future held, we would face it together. To new beginnings, Kellen whispered, echoing the words we'd spoken so long ago on that first night in our old house. I smiled, kissing him softly. To new beginnings and to the family we're building the right way. As night fell, we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, looking forward to the bright future ahead. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was ours to shape. And with love, trust, and determination, I knew we could overcome anything life threw our way.